As many of you are aware, I concluded my first 100 work days on December 1st. I had the pleasure of visiting all 100 schools and centers, including our students attending our governor's school and our students attending Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Fairfax. I appreciate the warm welcome I have received across the school division, and I enjoyed talking to our administrators, teachers, support staff, students, and parents. The pride in Prince William County Public Schools is evident. I also appreciate the thoughtful feedback for the improvement of our schools in the future. Following these remarks, I will be presenting our new 4-year strategic plan. We have used much of the feedback from these visits to shape many of the goals included in the plan. PWCS has ensured stakeholder involvement throughout the development of the strategic plan. The Superintendent's Advisory Council on Instruction, which consists of parent representatives from each school, provided early input in November 2019 as well as in November 2021. 3,887 parents, 499 staff members, 488 community members, 130 students, and 18 business partners provided input through the survey conducted in December 2019. A panel of representatives from higher education and businesses shared their priorities, and those were incorporated into the development of the plan. Additionally, I met personally with local faith leaders and local labor union leaders. In March 2020, the Superintendent's Advisory Council on Equity also provided input. In January through February 2021, board members had the opportunity to provide individual feedback on the commitments and identify priorities for goals. Additionally, upon my arrival in July 2021, I met with each school board member individually to document expectations and input for the strategic plan. Beginning the summer of 2021, 4 working groups were identified to lead the work of each of the strategic plan commitments. These teams collaboratively developed the goals and strategies. These teams involve members from the superintendent's cabinet and leadership team, as well as school representatives, including administrators, teachers, and counselors. On December 17th, I sent a letter to all families and staff, as well as community members, sharing the draft strategic plan. We have a dedicated website on the strategic plan, which can be found at pwcs.edu. This is a 4-year dynamic plan that will continue to evolve. And this evening, I look forward to providing an overview of Vision 2025, Launching Thriving Futures. Mr. Chairman, this concludes the Superintendent's report. I will now move to the podium to further my remarks on the strategic plan.
Thank you, Dr. McDade.
Good evening, and thank you so much for this opportunity to launch a bold and ambitious vision for Prince William County Public Schools. Vision 2025, Launching Thriving Futures. I am excited to present our mission, key commitments, strategies, and lofty goals for the future of Prince William County Public Schools. Tonight, I have joining me, and I would ask that you each stand as I introduce you, Rita Goss, Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, who led the working group for commitment number 1, Learning and Achievement for All. Denise Hebner, our Associate Superintendent of Special Education and Student Services, is the team lead for commitment number 2, Positive Climate and Culture. Catherine Porter Lucas, Associate Superintendent for Middle Schools, led commitment 3, Family and Community Engagement. And Matt Guilfoyle, Chief Information Officer, serves as the lead for commitment 4, Organizational Coherence. Tonight's presentation is an overview of the division strategic plan, and the comprehensive strategic plan document has been posted to the PWCS website for public comment and has been available since December 17th and is continued to be open. The PWCS mission and vision captures the spirit of our collective hopes and desires for all students. The vision of Prince William County Public Schools is for every student to graduate on time with the knowledge, skills, and habits of mind to create a thriving future for themselves and their communities. In order to bring this vision to fruition, we must be mission-driven in service to our students and families as trusted partners, ensuring our students are being prepared to be competitive in a global society, and commit to inclusive practices, equity, and excellence for every student and staff member every day. Here are a few fast facts about Prince William County Public Schools. We are the second largest school division in the state of Virginia, 34th largest in the nation. We are the most diverse county in the state of Virginia and the 10th most diverse county in the nation. Currently, our minority population makes up about 72% of our student demographic. Nearly 50% of our students are identified as economically disadvantaged, and we have a 25% EL student population, and about 13% of our students are identified students with disabilities. Our graduation rate is 92.8%, and our last year's senior class earned $64 million in scholarships. When we think about the diversity of our school division and the needs of our students, one of our biggest challenges is funding. Currently, PWCS has one of the lowest costs per pupil in the DC region, coming in only second from the bottom at $12,641 per pupil. This is a $3,000 difference per pupil in comparison to Loudoun and a whopping $7,000 per pupil in comparison to Arlington. The lack of parity in funding makes it challenging to support the needs of all students, which is one of the reasons we need everyone assuming shared ownership of the success of our young people in Prince William County. And we've identified a funding agenda for our business community to support the strategic plan, which I will provide more information on later in the presentation. We have 6 identified core values that will undergird our strategic initiatives, goals, commitments, and practices in our 4-year vision. These core values include the ideals of equity, inclusivity, innovation, integrity, resiliency, and well-being. In order to realize our vision of students graduating with the ability to create a thriving future for themselves and their community, it was important to define the characteristics that are necessary to realize this vision, which led us to the development of the profile of a graduate. Students who matriculate through PWCS from pre-K to 12th grade should embody the ideals of critical thinking, to be not only consumers of knowledge, but also producers of knowledge. They should be digital citizens with the ability to utilize advances in technology for the betterment of our world. We want our students to be innovators and visionaries who think critically to solve world problems. Global collaborators who not only value different perspectives, but see diversity as a superpower. And lastly, resilient. We want our students to adapt in the face of adversity. We believe that students who possess these characteristics will be well positioned for success when they leave Prince William County Public Schools, and it is our job to instill these ideals in our students throughout their educational journey. Our 4-year strategic plan is grounded in 4 key commitments: learning and achievement for all, positive climate and culture, family and community engagement, and organizational coherence. I will delve into each of these commitments and share highlights of the long-term goals and key strategies. Our first commitment is learning and achievement for all. In Prince William County Public Schools, we will prioritize access to excellence and equity in educational opportunities, ensuring that every student is met with high expectations and has a fair shot to succeed. To accomplish this, our educators and leaders must be prepared to not only support, but also challenge all students to meet their full potential. Additionally, our job goes well beyond handing off the diploma on the stage at graduation. We are responsible for our students' post-secondary success and ensuring that every student has a concrete post-secondary plan in their back pocket before they graduate PWCS in order to secure their future. For each of our commitments, we have identified both long-term and short-term goals. Tonight, I will be highlighting some of our long-term goals. For learning and achievement for all, our goals include a 95% graduation rate. We want 60% or more of our students graduating with one or more early college or career credentials, which would include college credit for advanced placement coursework, international baccalaureate courses, dual enrollment, Cambridge, industry certification for career and technical education, and as well as recognizing JROTC for students who may be planning to enlist in the military. We have a goal to reduce dropout rates by 10% for targeted populations. As shared earlier with the school board and the public in the State of the Schools report, our students with disabilities and English learners have the highest dropout rates, and we want to reduce this significantly over the next 4 years. We are also expecting to double down on workforce development and career experiences. We've set a goal of 3,500 rising juniors and seniors having summer employment opportunities over the next 4 years, and a minimum of 500 students graduating with a formal business apprenticeship or internship by 2025. I personally had the opportunity in my first 100 days to sit down with many members of our business community, such as, for example, Lockheed Martin, Micron, Amazon Web Services, Water Service Authority, just to name a few, and even our local trade unions, including IBEW Local 26, who also provided valuable feedback that you will see incorporated in the strategic plan. And they've also committed to supporting this goal for workforce development over the course of the next 4 years. Some of the strategies we will employ to meet these goals include bolstering the integrity of the instructional core, which speaks to what happens in the classroom every day, the quality of teaching practice, level of student engagement in their own learning, and academically challenging content. We will expand access to gifted, AP, IB, Cambridge, and dual enrollment. As you will recall, we presented the current state of gifted programs within our school division, and as such, we've set goals based on that current state to expand access. We will offer civic opportunities for students in post-secondary advising, planning, and counseling to support every student having a concrete post-secondary plan upon graduation. Our second commitment, positive climate and culture in our schools and division, ensures all students are educated in environments that are inclusive, safe, and supportive, not just physically, but also socially, emotionally, and mentally. We want to ensure that all students and staff are empowered and have a sense of belonging. Our facilities must be welcoming, safe, and sustainable, as we have a responsibility to be good stewards of our environmental resources. What you will find in our strategic plan is that many of our advisory councils have made recommendations that have been included in the plan, one of them being the Council on Sustainability, as you heard from our capital improvement plan presentation earlier. You saw their recommendations, and they have been codified within the strategic plan, including establishing long-term goals. Goals for positive climate and culture include 90% of our students reporting satisfaction with their school climate based on the annual student survey, increasing the diversity of our staff by 5%. Over the next 4 years, we plan to hire 350 international teachers, have 75 teaching assistants complete the coursework to become certified special education teachers, which we desperately need. And by 2025, we will have our first net zero school and a full suite of environmental literacy curriculum grades K through 12, which was also a recommendation from our Council on Sustainability. A few of the strategies for achieving positive climate and culture goals include implementing trauma-informed practices through our PWCS HEALS initiative, expanding our existing partnerships with over 50 colleges and universities to grow a diverse pipeline of teachers and leaders, and launching You Belong Here, which is an initiative to promote diversity, inclusion, and equity. Our third commitment is family and community engagement. We will prioritize engaging our families as authentic partners in education, improving two-way communication, and removing communication barriers to build trusting relationships. And we want to strengthen our partnerships with local businesses and trade unions and community agencies to better support our students' career aspirations.
I don't know what they are.
A few goal highlights for family and community engagement objectives include 90% of our families reporting they are engaged with their school community.
Medical?
We want at least one parent liaison for every school to support family engagement in the educational process. And our goal is to have every school in the division matched with a formal business or community agency partnership to advance their school improvement plans. Strategies for this commitment include removing barriers to two-way communication by expanding translation services. We will also be expanding the roles and responsibilities of school advisory councils, which you heard one of the speakers tonight mention, so that every school has a high-functioning advisory council made up of families and community members who contribute to the decision-making process. Spark, which is our PWCS foundation arm, has released an aggressive funding agenda to advance the work of the 4-year vision for PWCS. And we are asking our local businesses and community-based organizations for their support in reaching our collective goals. As a school division, we cannot do this work alone, and we need the entire ecosystem to have shared responsibility for investing in the future of this county. Our fourth and final key commitment is organizational coherence. Now, usually when I say organizational coherence, most people wonder, what does that mean in education, as it is typical nomenclature used in the business community. However, PWCS is a business, and our business is education. Organizational coherence seeks to address how we create the systems and structures for continuous improvement. Facilitate collaboration across the school division in the spirit of customer service, and articulate a shared vision for operating as a unified school system, as opposed to a system of schools with every individual school doing their own thing. Success comes when all schools and the division share a vision for success and are aligned to the same core commitments and goals, with everyone working towards the same North Star. And our 4-year strategic plan seeks to do just that, bring about the necessary coherence for long-term student success. Goals for this commitment include developing a funding formula that funds our schools not just for equity, but also for adequacy, which means making sure no matter how many students are enrolled in a school, whether it's a small school or a large school, they have the funding needed to provide high-quality educational program that meets the needs of every single learner. We will complete 8 school renovations, as you heard in the capital improvement plan presentation, between fiscal year 23 and 26, and remain current with technological advances as it relates to devices and tools in 100% of our schools. Strategies for this commitment include initiating a budget task force to improve our budget process, developing a digital equity investment plan, and establishing division-wide standards and operational requirements for site-based management, to name a few. A major strategy is ensuring that our priorities are always driving our investments. We have set forth ambitious goals and research-based strategies for the future success of Prince William County Public Schools. PWCS serves as a foundation for our county. We will continue to prepare students to be the citizens and leaders of tomorrow who will create thriving futures for themselves and their communities. As stated earlier, the full comprehensive plan is posted to our website and will remain open until February 2nd for parents and community to learn more and provide feedback. I want to thank all of our county stakeholders who contributed to the development of the strategic plan, and extend deep gratitude to Dr. Jennifer Casada, our Director of Research Accountability and Strategic Planning, who leads the division's strategic planning efforts, as well as my team leads, who I introduced earlier, who led the working group for each of the commitments, and all of over 4,000 stakeholders that contributed to the development of this plan. I also want to thank each and every board member for your commitment, not to just to the strategic plan, but holding us all accountable for excellence for every single student, and all of your collaboration in the development of this strategic plan. At this time, I want to open it up for questions and just say to each and every one of you that your collaboration and effort has made all the difference, and together we truly do achieve more. If you have any questions, I'm going to invite both myself and my team leads to answer questions related to each of the core commitments.
Wonderful, Dr. McDade. That was fantastic. Thank you. At this point, I'll open the floor for questions for the superintendent and her staff. Anybody want to jump at that first? Okay. Well, I'll just make some comments, and maybe we'll get the ball rolling with some questions here in a bit. First off, thank you so much. I think, as one of the speakers said earlier, this is very concrete. It's a plan that I think it really does contain the vision of the entire community. Running for office, you get a chance to talk to so many different people, representing folks for now 4 years, and going through what we just went through. The engagement with the public has been incredibly high, and I think much of what you talk to when you talk to members of the community, whether there are volunteers in the school, our parents, our teachers, our staff, much of what I feel like they desire is located somewhere here in this document. And I think it's really a testament to the listening you all have done, the listening that I think the board has done, and I think, like I said, this is up for everyone to take a look at. Please weigh in. This is something we'll vote on and approve in the February meeting. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. McDade.
Oh, okay.
Dr.
And then,
Dr. Latif.
Sure, Miss Jessie.
Hi. I just want to say that I've heard Dr. McDade present this plan 2 or 3 times, and each time I'm amazed at her ability to just smoothly present it. I've been here for a long time. I've never seen a superintendent actually present the plan herself or himself, and so invested. The parts of the plan that I really like are, of course, they're SMART goals. They're goals that are measurable, and I'm pleased to see that. I also wanted to highlight the fact that there was involvement from large groups of people who were involved. And every time I look at this plan, I see something different. Tonight, for the first time, I saw teacher assistants being trained. And I was a Title I supervisor, and some of the teacher assistants I inherited were as bright, and I think it's one of those areas that we can grow in. I'm pleased to see that. And the post-secondary element, where we're looking at just not looking at the graduation rates, but we're looking at what happens when our kids go on to college, because there are discrepancies there. I just want to thank you for putting this plan together. When I met with the group, I talked about Dr. McDade, and I said something to her. Someone earlier talked about early childhood education is in her plan. And what I talked about, and I know Diane is at Garfield, and we're in these high schools, and we see these high schoolers who are not literate. And, we read to learn at K3, and after 4th or 5th grade, I'd like for her to spend some time with that. But I'm just very impressed. And as I said in the group, the word excitement and strategic plan has never been used, but I've heard several board members say they were excited about this plan. And I just want to thank you for coming into this county. And I think we're pleased with our selection. I think we did the right things, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate the work that you've done. The fact that you visited 100 schools, I don't know how you do it. But anyway, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie.
Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Chairman Latif. Thank you, Dr. McDade, and to your staff for presenting this draft strategic plan for the board's and really public review. I appreciate the approach that you have undertaken with the strategic plan, not only is it very comprehensive, very well thought out, there's accountability factored into the plan. It deals with a three-dimensional view of our school division and encompasses our community and business partners as well. I also appreciate how long that this plan is available for public comment before the board makes our final decision for approval. I can't state enough, the opportunity for public input. It was made in the development of the plan. It's been out since December 15th on our website. It's been publicly presented and sometimes thoroughly, sometimes at high speed by yourself to various groups and stakeholders. It is a refreshing change of pace for the school division under your leadership, and transparency, I think, is paramount for what you have done in presenting information to us and to the public. And I really appreciate that. I know that we will see changes based on the comments that were received, which I think we have not really acknowledged thus far. I don't want the public to think that it's final when it says draft on it, because I think that gets sometimes impressions get twisted around. We present things before the board and the public feels like, well, that's it, it's presented. We don't have time to weigh in. And I just want to remind the public that there's always time to weigh in until the vote is taken. And there's many different ways to do so. I know I've made my comments to you directly and to your staff. So I just appreciate the time that you have taken to actively listen, not just listen, but actively listen, to present a plan like this to us in under 6 months that incorporates all aspects of what you've heard in the boardroom through your interactions in the community, with your staff, with board members. I think is absolutely fantastic and what we should expect of a superintendent. So I just want to say thank you, to all of your staff and everyone who played a role, this board included, in this strategic plan, and really thank you for listening. That's much appreciated.
Thank you. I do want to ask Dr. Casada to just share our collection of comments and what we're going to do with that moving forward.
Good evening, Dr. Latif, Vice Chairwoman Jackson, school board members. So as Ms. Williams just articulated, and as Dr. McDade did, the strategic plan has been available since December 17th. And right there on the website where the plan is available, there's a link where you can provide feedback and comments. It takes the public right to a survey form. In terms of what's been received, one of the themes that we're hearing is some additional context and clarification around some of the terms in the plan. And so there's already a glossary at the end of the plan, but it's going to be expanded to include some other terms that people have identified through the feedback to make sure that the public has access to the understanding of the language that's being used in the plan. And as Ms. Williams also indicated, along the way, feedback from advisory councils and principals was shaping the iteration of the draft all the way up to and including the day that it was posted. And feedback will continue to be collected through that feedback form up to the day of your vote on February 2nd, and will be summarized, and any changes continue to be made. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Sargapur.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Latif. One of our speakers tonight mentioned something that I thought was very compelling about, we have a long-range plan. Could you talk a little bit about maybe how we have this long-range plan, and she mentioned having a shorter-term plan and things like that, how we're going to check in. I know we're supposed to receive updates on where we are in the strategic plan. I know you and I have talked about tying it to the budget and all that good stuff. So could you give a little insight on some of that? Because her comments, I think, were really right on target, and I think it's important to know that in a strategic plan should not be, okay, we made the document, let's put it away. It really is something that is living, and I just want to hear a little bit about how you envision that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And one of the comments that I made earlier is that the plan is dynamic and not static, and so it will continue to have will continue to iterate and evolve. But I really appreciate that question, because what we have been trying to do as a team is to incorporate continuous improvement both at the central office in terms of our instructional teams and operational teams and how they support schools, and linking that to the school improvement plans and what schools identify as their need. Ideally, the 4-year vision charts forth the path for how we get to these long-term goals. Year over year, every school, as well as every office within central office that supports schools, will have an annual strategic plan that works backwards from our long-term goals, that really we monitor how we're on track towards reaching the goals. So for example, if we say that we want to expand access to gifted AP/IB, what you'll see from the gifted office in the Office of Teaching and Learning is every year an annual strategic plan that outlines the milestones, the actions that we're going to take, the milestones we plan to reach towards impact. And on an annual basis, we'll be able to provide you with progress to say either we're on track towards meeting whatever our 4-year goal is, or we're off track and if we have to do course corrections, which is why the document is dynamic, because course corrections will be necessary. Part of the research-based strategy for continuous improvement is to identify problems of practice, which we use data to do that with the strategic plan. Determine how we're going to address that problem of practice through an action plan. So where you see the strategic initiatives outlined, that's a part of our action plan. Implement with fidelity and then evaluate continuously along the way to determine if what we said we were going to do is yielding the impact that we're looking for. And if it's not, then identifying that there's a need to make a course correction along the way, which is why it's important for the document to be dynamic. So you will get regular updates. The public will get regular updates. Typically, it's the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year annual update on the strategic plan to say what's green, red, or yellow. Green meaning it's on track towards meeting the 4-year goal or the annual goal, that implementation goal that leads to the big impact goal. Or yellow, we're behind schedule, or red, we have to do a course correction, it's not working. So that's what you should expect. But we will be implementing at the central office level, just like schools have an annual continuous improvement plan. Our offices that are responsible for supporting these strategic initiatives in schools will also have an annual plan that works backwards from the long-term 4-year goal.
Oh, man, I'm geeking out on this. Thank you. One other thing I would like parents to understand is locally at your own child's school, there are the parent advisory councils, and your principal is going to, they talk about these things in those council meetings, and I suspect in probably some other places too. So this is an opportunity to kind of drill down at your own child's school. You should be hearing this stuff, I would imagine.
Yes, and we will be working with principals. We've already started diving into the strategic plan with building leaders as well. The expectation will be that as continuous improvement plans at the local school are developed, that they will be aligning to the division plan and sharing this information locally with the school advisory council. And as you'll note, in the strategic plan, we did identify the school advisory council as one of our goals to make sure that we are improving those and that every school has a high functioning council, because that serves as the governing body at the local school level.
Right. And then the other thing I think is important is the general public who maybe don't have children in the school system any longer, but who are paying attention. You're going to be able to get that information, like you said, at the mid-year and at the end of the year of how the whole division's doing. But each school might look a little bit different. Some may be on a little bit of a one kind of path and another one at a different. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean a school is bad. I don't want to say, put that really out there. But if we're constantly improving, all schools are in that phase, right? So I think this is really important for, we can drill down as a locality, and then a little bit bigger as pyramids, and then even overall as the school division, so that everybody who wants to have a stake in this does at some level. So thank you so much for all of that.
Ms. Wahl.
All right, Dr. McDade, I have a lot of respect for all the work that went into the development of this strategic plan, and there are a lot of great things in it. I wanted to ask a couple of questions that relate to, so I took the time to read the whole document, every word. Questions that relate to the dual language immersion programs, the addition of 6 more dual language immersion programs, and I understand we have just maybe 2 or something like that, but if you could speak a little bit more about that. And then it related is this, which I thought was really cool, was this credit by exam option for meeting the world language credit requirements. So for an advanced diploma, it's 3, and it looks like the VDOE offers 30 different exams. So students who speak, let's say they speak Arabic or Korean or Russian or something that we don't really teach, or maybe they're already fluent in it, so why should they take a class in it, right?
Right.
Is that the idea?
Right.
That they take this exam, they can earn credits for it, and then they free up room in their schedule to take other classes, maybe pick up another language or do a specialty program or a certification or something like that. I guess those are, I have a couple of, do you want to speak to
So we're like,
either
sure.
of those? They're kind
Sure.
of related. They're the foreign language aspect,
Yes.
which I'm really excited about both of these things.
I do want to invite Ms. Rita Goss, our Associate Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, as she led what you're speaking of is in our Learning and Achievement for All commitment around world language and dual language. And one of her directors, Dr. Cologne, led the charge around that. So I do want to respect their work and give her an opportunity to speak to it.
Sure. So good evening, Dr. Latif, school board members, Mrs. Wahl. So your first question was around the dual immersion program. So currently we have 1 dual immersion program at Bel Air Elementary School, and we are looking to expand that. That really will assist us in teaching our students all of the content areas in 2 languages, English as well as another language. Currently, Bel Air Elementary has their dual language is English and Spanish, but we would be looking to not only expand that programming around Spanish, French, or German, which are the 3 most common languages taught here in the school division, but also be looking at languages that are necessary for the global economy, which is Arabic, Russian, Mandarin Chinese. So we would be looking to add elementary schools that would be pursuing those languages along with English. And then you asked some questions about the seal of biliteracy and additional tests, and you are spot on that we would be encouraging our multilingual students. It is an asset to be multilingual, and we certainly would be utilizing the opportunity to have those students take a test and receive credit for being multilingual and fluent in another language, which would indeed free up space in their schedule to pursue other interests such as CTE or other advanced courses that they are interested in or would like to pursue.
Thank you. And can I ask just a quick follow-up? Do we currently allow students or encourage students or even have students who strive for the seal of biliteracy, and do we have students who achieve?
We absolutely do. We have students that are already achieving that seal of biliteracy, so we would be looking to increase the number of students that we have getting that seal.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to quick follow-up because we have you up there, Ms. Goss. While I recognize Arabic and Russian are languages that are spoken by a large population, Hindi and Urdu are spoken by 1 billion plus. So, and we do have a lot of that population here. So as you're looking at which ones to choose and the economies of scale, I mean, I think that I think the federal government has also listed Hindi and Urdu as targeted languages that they'd like to see schools sort of adopting in those things. So just something to think about.
Absolutely. There are a number of languages that we'll be considering. Those were just examples that I gave, but excellent call out. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, Dr. McDade, and your staff for this comprehensive plan. I'm so thankful for the extensive nature of it, and I share your team's commitment for all students. I believe, I'm going to quote you, have a fair shot and challenge to meet their full potential. And I also agree that we share responsibility for Prince William County students' post-secondary success. As a special educator, I really appreciate that the goals are measurable And I appreciate the links between the CIP that we heard today and the stuff in the strategic plan. It's kind of like what you said about ensuring a common North Star, and it also recognizes within the plan that success looks different for everybody. I also am very grateful that we use the word teaching assistants in the plan, and that we're going to utilize the skill set that many of our current coworkers have in becoming, helping them become educators. So I had a question about next steps in finalizing the plan, and Dr. Quesada already answered that. And then I had a question about how we're going to visit the goals, and I really like your plan and like how often the public's going to see their progress. And Ms. Sagapur discussed the schools improvement plans and the link to, the three of you discussed the link to the strategic plan. So many of my questions are already answered, but I would like to also piggyback on the conversation about multilingual approach and just to advocate for American Sign Language as being one of the languages. I know that a lot of my students benefited from it, so just wanted to put in a plug. Thank you again for all of this.
Rita?
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Did you want Ms. Goss to speak to American Sign Language?
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Goss.
Absolutely. So American Sign Language is already offered at one of our high schools, and that is one of the languages that we would be considering as a part of that work to educate our students in dual language.
Yeah, I know it's offered, and I really appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Ms. Williams, and then I'll go next. Did you?
Oh, I just forgot to mention on my last comment time. I think it can't be understated the shift in culture that the strategic plan brings to our school division. And I didn't neglected to mention earlier, I appreciate our new vision, but also our mission statement, and that they're all in alignment. I think that is the foundation that runs the rest of the division and really is our guiding light for everything that we do. As a board, I think we've heard this several times, but as the public tunes in and listens more actively as we continue to discuss the strategic plan, I don't think it could be understated enough, or it could be stated enough how much of a culture shift this is, and I believe in the right direction. But I do appreciate our new mission statement and our new vision statement and how it aligns with our strategic plan, and the fact that our plan is not a single-page document. There are real built-in accountability tools. I just can't say it enough. So I encourage everybody to go out and look at those and really understand that our division has shifted. Sometimes we get caught in ways of doing things that we've done in the past, and this is a fresh look and a fresh outlook on what Prince William County School, the direction Prince William County Schools should be going in or will be going in. And I hope that our public and our staff and students can appreciate that. It's hard to make that shift into something new, but I think this is the right way to go. So thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions, and then I think there might be a member or two that might still have some things. Real quick, can we go to the slide on the per pupil spending? That would have been like third or fourth in the presentation. Is there anybody in charge of slides? So while you're pulling that up, the reason I bring that up is that this is an ambitious plan. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that, plans cost money. And the job that we as school board members have are really 4 jobs. One is hire a superintendent. Number 2 is to come up with a strategic plan. Number 3 is to ensure a good oversight. And number 4 is to make sure we have the funding to do all the things we need to do. These are the 4 things we are responsible for doing. And if we go back to that per pupil slide, you'll see that the community, we haven't done enough, I believe, and it's no secret that I say this every year, that we need to do more on increasing the per pupil spending. And per pupil spending, what does that mean? 90+% of per pupil spending is what we pay our staff and our teachers and our salaries. That makes up the largest chunk of our budget. And that continues to be on the lower side compared to our neighbors in the region. And that's something this board has been committed to increasing at a rate higher than we've ever done in the past, and we commit to continuing to try to do that when we can. But it doesn't come easy. You know, we have to make choices. When we increase salaries, which is really important, we have to do that. We have to find other monies to fund the programs that we want and hire the further staffing we need. For example, one of my concerns is that their science scores obviously was one of the things hit the hardest during the pandemic, along with math. Science was, nationwide a problem, and Prince William's not alone in that. And so I'd love to see some beefing up of our science department and our experts and specialists. We have some elementary schools that have STEM encore programs, and those are some of the programs that were cut first during the pandemic. And one would think that in a pandemic, that should be cut last, because the students really need to understand the science around what we're going through. And so I just find that maybe the priorities we have, much of it's based on funding, and it's unfortunate that we have to make some of these, we just, in the real world, we have to make cuts. And so I emphasize to the public that as you look at this plan, and those of you who have enjoyed it, and our parents and partners in the community, recognize that this plan will cost money. It's something that we are ambitious about. It's something this board, I believe, hopefully will approve this plan in 3 weeks, but that comes with an effort that we must increase funding to our school division. And we have to make real gains on this chart. We cannot continue to be here at the bottom. If we do, we won't achieve what's here in this plan. And I'm just being very frank and honest and stark with everyone. This is not, this plan is great, but there's a lot of things in here that are on the wish list of every board member who spent the last few months working with the superintendent and her staff on what we'd like to see in this. And we're very appreciative that you've included much of what this board has asked to see, and you've learned from our community members and your touring of our schools of what you believe is needed, and you're going to bring that expertise to our division. But for the public, we're going to go into budget season. There's going to be some hard choices we're going to ask the public to make, and ask for their support and commitment, because we do want this community to be a place of a destination to live, and we believe that funding our schools will be the first way to do that successfully. So I mentioned in here that I'd love to see a little bit more, if I had it, I don't really have much criticism. I actually have maybe zero, outside the fact that I'd like to just see a little bit more beefing up around science curriculum, and I love what we're doing with the languages and our ESOL learners and English language learners. Fantastic stuff in there. Much of what's in here in the accountability, Dr. McDade, as you know, is going to be, because we do site-based management, there's going to be site-based accountability, and we're all going to have to work hard on making sure that every school is really committed to doing this. So, if we're having schools that, might not have programs that Dr. Latif wants in the schools, geometry,
It's in there.
Gifted learners, and Jen Wahl, who served on the Gifted Advisory Committee long before she came on here, has brought to the attention, a lot of the concerns that committee has been making year after year, and recommendations that we just haven't followed through with. And many of those recommendations, to be fair, because of money. It's because of money. If we have 17 schools that have to share gifted teachers, we really need to change that. And so all of this, while the plan is wonderful and I love every aspect of it, it does cost us money. And if we don't have the money, then we're going to have to make decisions in this plan. Dynamic is good, but dynamic is also reflective of the challenges we may face in funding. And so I sort of carry on about this because, that's my job, and I have to get the money to make this happen. So I'm going to ask the public in this budget season to understand what the Board of County Supervisors, what we're going to ask them for, what we're asking the state government for, and that the community and the public consider supporting
PWCS
efforts to increase funding in education across the board, wherever we can and however we can do that. And I want the public to also know that parents were heavily involved in this. You've heard that over and over again. Our advisory councils are parent-driven. Your original statement is that this entire plan is community-driven, parent-driven. This school division has always considered what the parents think highly important. And I cannot emphasize that. There was never a time when this school division discounted what the parents thought. Before you arrived, before I came here, Dr. Waltz's commitment was always, it was these advisory councils are made up of parents, and so we do listen to them. So I've carried on a bit too long. I'll go to Ms. Wahl and then Ms. Jessie. Ms. Wahl had her hand up first. Ms. Wahl.
All right, thanks, Dr. Latif. One of my questions, actually, I'm going to hold one question. I'll just email it later. It had to do with the expanding advanced academic opportunities, the IB program expansion, and the middle year expansion, and then increased dual enrollment offerings, course offerings. So that's, kind of academic, so I can ask that question. But I wanted to comment, and I don't know if it'll turn into a question, we'll see, on the compensation and benefits portion of the strategic plan for our certified staff, and classified staff, I assume too. Looking at that to see if we are regionally competitive, and that we'll be doing a comprehensive study of our compensation and benefit programs with prioritized recommendations for improvement, and reviewing job classifications relative to pay grades to ensure internal fairness and external fairness as compared to peer school divisions, and that we will begin this process. Is it 2023 when we will begin referencing or using that data that we find to inform strategic investments?
Yeah, so we that's a process that has already been underway. And if Dr. Eagle would like to speak to it, I'll welcome her to come and speak to it. But it is already underway. Her team's been working diligently on this and near actually completion. Of course, in this first budget cycle, we won't be able to achieve everything that we want from that study. And so where you see 23, that's where we're hoping to start to see some impact of that. And then more in the out years. But Dr. Eagle, do you want to speak just briefly about the comprehensive study that has already been started to be developed?
Good evening, school board members. As Dr. McDade shared, this is work that our staff has been working on over the past actually couple of years. You'll recall a couple of years ago, we did add a compensation supervisor to our human resource staff. And we are currently evaluating our compensation relative to peer school divisions, in particular our teaching staff. But it doesn't end there. We actually have been working comprehensively last year, primarily on our administrator pay grades, and this year we did begin looking both for internal and external equity within our classified pay grades. So we do have a plan to move forward with budget recommendations, over the next several years to make adjustments as necessary based on the findings of our compensation studies. In terms of benefits, this is an initiative that Mr. McAlandra has already begun as well with his staff, and we are hopeful to expand those efforts in the coming budget year in terms of our study of our benefit programs.
Okay, great. I think as I listen to employees, that reach out to me from my district or the schools that I service, this is something that is a big interest to a lot of our employees. So I'm glad to hear that. And I think I was happy to see that in the plan. I was happy to see that we are going to be taking a closer look, because I know over the years I've heard, this needs to be adjusted, or this is a little bit out of balance. And also, it looks like in 2023, we will do an assessment similar in scope to that 2017 study about central office administrative positions, and that the results will inform our 2024 budget process. So I just wanted to highlight that I think that those are important. There are a lot of actually really great important things that are proposed in this plan, but I wanted to highlight that and ask about that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jessie?
I've had several people come to me, and I've noticed in the boardroom that the question about high dosage tutoring and acceleration versus remediation, I know that Dr. McDade, you and your staff have said that you're looking at research-based strategies. I'm wondering if maybe you could, in a nutshell, explain to the public and perhaps to the staff why high dosage tutoring and acceleration versus not versus remediation, but acceleration and the research-based status. I know a little bit about it. It's Success for All, but that's been back in the day. But it seems to be something that's also current, where we move at a faster pace and get these kids moving, and the kids seem to want to move also. Could you address that a little bit for me?
Yes, I will have Ms. Goss, who has led the unfinished learning plan, where we first identified the research for high dosage tutoring, talk a little bit more about that. I know that she did come before the board and have done several public presentations around the unfinished learning plan, specifically identifying high dosage tutoring and the difference between that and acceleration. I'm going to let her take it because this is her work, but I just want to share something that I think is important when we think about how the brain develops, how people learn and grow. You know, if you have a struggling reader, and I think it's a good analogy that kind of helps people who may not be in education or understand this make sense of it. If you have a student who, let's say, is a struggling reader, let's take a 5th grade student that may be reading at the 3rd grade level. If you continue to provide remediation and only, I want to highlight the word only provide the student access to learning in text at the level where they are, which is appropriate, but only do that and not provide them with the level of productive challenge at higher levels, they'll just continue to be a stronger 3rd grade level reader. You have to get students to have productive struggle. It's just like working out at a gym. If you keep lifting the same 20-pound weight, eventually that 20-pound weight won't be heavy to you. And you don't grow stronger in muscle mass or strength by doing the same thing. You have to challenge that muscle and go up higher, maybe 25 pounds or 30 pounds or 35 pounds. And that makes sense to people. Well, it's the same thing with learning. Students have to be challenged and have productive struggle. They have to, even if they do need remediation, they have to have access to grade appropriate curriculum that gets them to not only for teachers to scaffold to help them to grow, but even to excel beyond their current grade level. And so I use that because usually when I share that example, people understand that. I'll have Rita share kind of the research base around high dosage tutoring and really define what it is. But it doesn't take the place of remediation. It's a strategy that is being used so that we address the fact that students have not had access to some of the content that they should have accessed grade appropriate content during the pandemic because of the loss of instructional time. So it's not just about remediation, it's also about covering the content that students have gaps in as a result of the pandemic. And research across this country shows that high dosage tutoring is the best way to address that. So I'm going to ask Rita to come forward and give some of the research behind that and actually define what it is as well, since this is her work.
Question mark.
So good evening, and thank you, Mrs. Jessie, for that question. I agree a number of people are wondering about acceleration and high dosage tutoring. So first, let's talk about acceleration. Acceleration is really when we focus in on the most essential skills that a student needs or knowledge to reach that grade level learning that's coming up. And so as we're looking to remediate students, we all know that students have lost opportunity to learn over the last 2.5 years because of the pandemic. And all of those gaps can't possibly be filled in this year or in the next year. We're going to be recovering for this over the next few years. And so we don't have time, just being honest and transparent, we don't have time to fill in every gap that students have in their learning. So we have to be strategic and targeted. We have to look at the most essential standards, those power standards, if you will, Mrs. Jessie, that will bridge students from where they are to the grade level learning that's coming up next. So we're setting students up to be able to access that grade level learning, to best understand what that grade level learning that is, in front of them. And so it's really pre-teaching, if you will, a number of skills and pieces of knowledge that they will need to be the most successful. Again, it does not, that acceleration does not preclude us using interventions or remediation for students, but it is in order to really focus us and be the most targeted we can about trying to close the learning gap the best way that we possibly can. As far as high dosage tutoring, they really go hand in hand. The high dosage tutoring is really the methodology that we're using to try to accelerate students. So we would use that high dosage tutoring, again, not in lieu of interventions or remediation that students may need, but we would use that high dosage tutoring when teachers are really doing this. It's in small groups. It's 1 to 4 students. So we're not having a group of 30 kids in front of us. And we're honing in on what do those few students need to accelerate them. Again, what are those power standards, those essential understandings, those enduring understandings that they absolutely have to have for the units that are coming up in all of the core areas. And so that high dosage tutoring, I think, is something that the research is clear about. The research done all over the country, but also in Chicago Public Schools, is one of the places in which we've seen our university partners note the success of students who have used high dosage tutoring in the ways in which we have successfully made up gaps. And we have to be strategic and intentional because we cannot possibly, we don't have enough time in the day, and schools are not open 7 days a week. And even if we were, we've missed a lot of opportunity. And so we have to be as strategic and intentional as we possibly can. And that's where the research around the acceleration and the high dosage tutoring is what we're leaning in on.
I would say to you that, like Dr. Latif said, there are some things that, as I listen to people, I think that there are people who don't know what power standards are, and they don't know the difference between the essential skills. I think that sometimes we're asking teachers to do things that they are not familiar with. So I would like for you guys to look at that and make it an in-service or professional development opportunity, because I think once teachers understand that power standards make a great deal more sense than trying to teach every single standard. There's too many standards to teach. But I think we need to really put that on as a professional development plan. If you would look at that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll continue to do that. Mrs. Jessie, I do want to just let everyone know that this past summer, our supervisors for each of our content areas spent time with our lead teachers and others across the division to identify those essential understandings in each of the curriculums on Canvas. But you make a good point. We want to keep revisiting that and ensure that all of our teachers are understanding what those are in the curriculum. So thank you.
They just have to hear it more than once, Rita.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, I think, did you have any more, Ms. Wahl? Okay, she will, and remember, board members, it is imperative that you all continue to get feedback on your own, work with your constituencies, and continue to communicate with Dr. McDade and her staff over the next few weeks as we finalize this, and we'll bring to the public the final draft in early February. Thank you very much, Dr. McDade.
All right, and Dr. Latif, and to the entire board, we will provide you, prior to consideration of adoption of the strategic plan, we will be providing you with a summary of all of once the period comes to a close, we'll provide you with a summary of all of the feedback that we've received, and how we'll incorporate that into the next iteration of